I'm going to hand the reins over to Breland, Neal, and Jared for some Major League Baseball talk in tonight's roundtable. Guys?
Major League Baseball potentially starting its regular season in May, maybe, but entirely in Arizona with a ton of changes to the sport as we know it. What stood out to you guys about that proposal, and would you be in favor? Jared?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of weird parts to this deal.
Very.
I think so the deal is there's no dugout. The players, after they go take the at-bat, they go to the stands and they still sit 6 feet apart. So that aerial view of a bunch of players in the stands, I think that's pretty funny. You add in the microphone and the shortening of games. It's going to be a weird deal, but bottom line, there'll be competitive baseball being played, and that's why I'm all for it. Yes, I want to see the Royals back at Kauffman Stadium more than anyone. I want the MLB season to start as soon as it's safe, but if for a month, even 2 months, we can still have competitive baseball in a safe environment, even if that means everybody in Arizona in a smaller ballpark, no fans, weird games, even if it means that, it's still sports actions. And so as soon as it is safe to do so, I say go for it. Yes, it'll be a weird season, but at the end of the day, it's still competitive baseball that we all can watch and enjoy.
I personally think May is a little too ambitious here. We have no idea what is going on with this virus, and we are on its timeline, not our own. And to separate players from their families, because basically they're all going to have to be isolated there because everybody's still in quarantine. I know California extended their self-isolation for at least a couple more weeks here, so they're well into the month of May. To separate players from families, even if they all do test negative, I think that's just a little bit too ambitious. But Neal, what do you say?
I think that the plan that came out a couple of days ago, Bob Nightingale from USA Today has kind of broached, is a much more workable plan. It's similar to what we heard about Arizona, except they would also allow teams to play in their facilities in Florida. So there would be Florida division that would stay in Florida and play, and then the teams in Arizona would continue to play in Arizona. It's a much more workable deal. There is not going to be a deal that forces the players away from their families for 4 months. It's just not a realistic deal. A lot of these players have young kids, and you're not going to leave. I don't care. That's just an unworkable deal, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great on paper, but in practice, I just don't see them leaving their families and basically isolating themselves with the rest of their team for who knows how long. Well, another report, as you just mentioned, Neal, centers around a league restart in Arizona and Florida, and that would create all new divisions and leagues, with the Royals' proposed division looking kind of nice there. What impact will this very weird season have on the Royals specifically, Neal?
Well, I don't think there's any question, but that if they play a shortened season, it makes it much easier for teams like the Royals to stay in the pennant race. If you're playing 80 games instead of 162, you can paper over some of the problems you might have with your bullpen or your starting pitching. They don't have. One of the great things about baseball is it's hard to fake it out. If you're not a good team, 162 games will show all of your warts, all of your weaknesses, but 80 games, you know what? It makes it much more doable for a team that might be on the fringe.
Jared?
Yeah, on that line, I think every Royals fan should hope that this season is as weird as possible, all right? Wherever they're playing, whatever new rules, whether it's if the microphones affect stuff, like whatever impact that we eventually will see, I think Royals fans should be all for it, because a normal season, 162 games, this team I really do think was going to be better this year than the past 2 years, but still, they weren't really sniffing the playoffs. But as Neal said, even if you play 162 games, but you have 7-inning doubleheaders in the same day, that's where that pitching depth, if you're only going 7 innings, it becomes less of a factor. And so those weak spots with the Royals becomes less of a big deal, and that's where Neal said they're going to be more competitive longer into the year. It's less about home runs and more about just squeaking by runs in these shortened games. So I think Royals fans should be all for it. Who knows? They were still on the verge of contending here, a couple years away, but maybe this brings more competitive baseball, at least for a few months, which gives them good experience for when the Royals are ready to officially compete here in a year or two.
Alrighty, well, of course, this is all just proposal and just talk, so we will see how this thing shakes out, when it, of course, shakes out, because we have no idea when sports will return, but we hope that it is soon. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe.